Hey everyone, patch 9.4 is dropping on Thursday, a day later than normal, but these are the 17 changes that are going to be coming with it, and we have a few big ones like the rework to Conqueror in here. The new quarterback season has also started, by the way, and we need some help. If we get up to 3rd spot, we're 4th right now, we can get an extra 5k bonus coins. Since we're in Division 1 as well, the top 100 members will grab the bonus coins here that you can see on screen. I honestly run this behind every single game that I play at the moment, and I get a decent number of trophies every single week without really trying, and that will build up to free skins. Download the app, run it in the background, join a challenge before each game, and that's literally all you have to do apart from making sure you've joined the Fighters Club, and a link for that is down below. For the changes, there's no doubt that the biggest one is the rework to Conqueror. It's now going to grant stacks of adaptive force on damaging enemy champions. It grants 3 to 15 per stack, which scales with your level, by the way. It lasts 8 seconds for melee, 3 seconds for range, and that stacks up to 5 times for a maximum of 15 to 75. At maximum stacks though, you also unlock another bonus, converting 10% of your damage versus champions to true damage, and you heal for the same amount as well. Damage over time, by the way, can only grant a stack every 5 seconds. It looks really OP on the face of it, but I just want to point out a few very major things about this. So first off, it is adaptive damage now, so AP champions, you can go ahead and use this, whereas the old Conqueror just gave AD. Another part of the reason why it works for AP is because it also stacks now via spells and auto attacks, meaning in theory you can sit back, you can stack it from really far away. The thing is, it is half as much true damage though as the previous version of Conqueror that we have at the moment, so it doesn't melt through tanks or anybody as much. Instead though, it gives the healing, right? So it's a 10% heal and a 10% true damage rather than just a flat 20% of the true damage. It being 5 stacks now as well also means that it's not just a switch on at the very start of combat and you go nuts. It does take time before it's actually going to start to do damage, unlike the last version. The final thing is that it cannot be stacked up on minions anymore. You have to fight champions, and this is one of the biggest changes. It was the easiest thing to abuse ever on champions because you could stack it up on minions, get it ready to go, then start a fight, and it was instantly going to be active. Now in the same situation, you will start that fight at 0 stacks and have to hit them up to 5 times before you get the true damage. Before you hit the true damage point, Conqueror is only giving you some bonus AD or AP. It is not healing you, it's not doing true damage. Don't get me wrong, right? Giving you a ton of stats at maximum stacks and healing and like true damage is bonkers, but the counterplay is there at the very start of combat. They aren't anywhere near as strong as they would have been with the old version, and that is the biggest difference. This works a lot like the old Further Battle, if you remember that from a few seasons ago, and that was really good on AD carries as well. So I think we're going to see a lot of other champions that this could work on now. If you play with or against it in 9.4 though, just remember it is pretty bad until it has 5 stacks, but then it is really strong. Let's go into our nerfs then. So Lucian is the biggest one probably. W cost increased by 20 and the damage has been lowered by 10 to 30. It's actually a really clever nerf, and I'm not being sarcastic for once either. Right now Lucian can spam his W early to stack up his mana flow ban, giving him more overall mana and letting him trade or spam spells a lot more. That makes his laning phase even stronger because he can obviously fight a lot more, right? Or wave clear, push, whatever he wants to do with the mana. It isn't that hard either when you spam rank 1 out from range, completely safe, and you need to only hit it 10 times and then mana flow is fully stacked. That gives you 250 bonus mana and restores 1% of your missing mana every 5 seconds. The cooldown on mana flow ban is only 15 seconds as well, so it doesn't take very long, but now you'd have to pay an extra 20 mana from your W to actually use it. Think of it like this: using it 4 times would be 200 mana right now, but using it 3 times with the nerf version is 210 mana. It's also 10 less damage rank 1, 30 rank 5, which is another point. People are starting to max this, or at least put some points in it to poke a bit more. It does a fair amount of damage, it can do it from range, even help you CS a little bit at the same time in harder matchups. So basically Riot is saying they want you to max your Q and be punished for spamming your W out. Definitely is going to be a nerf, but nothing too crazy if you just don't use it much except for a proper fight. Yasuo's AD is also going to be decreased this patch, and his Q crit damage decreased by 20%. It's one of the other big nerfs, I think, not just the 3 AD, even though we all know the devastating effect that that can have. The Q damage is what jumps out a little bit more, right? But these are mostly reverting some buffs that gave him a while ago when he was too weak. Their argument is now that your Infinity Edge has some of his crit damage back, Q doesn't really need as much, so that is why they're taking it back. In theory, it also means that he will be about as strong as before this patch in 9.3. In theory, not insane, but not ridiculously weak either. Thresh is also getting something similar. His Q cost is going to be increased by 10, cooldown increased early by 4 seconds up to 20, which is again, by the way, a partial revert from the buffs they gave him before Worlds last season. He is the most dominating pick in the lane phase right now. I see him basically every single game, and he always has a really good impact. He is so well rounded, and with with his Q being cheaper and a lower cooldown, it meant he could throw it out a ton and just fish for a lucky hook really. Now at least you get punished a little bit more for doing that, you run out of mana faster, and if it's down as well, you have a longer time to engage before it's back up. Karthus is also up for some nerfs, so Q damage decreased by 5, and that is 10 on a single target. Even though it looks like a bit of a meme with only 5 damage, it is 10 when they're isolated, and you're often hitting this a ton during the laning phase. It's going to affect his wave clear, all-in pressure, or poke, maybe clearing the jungle and his lane phase and stuff. It's going to take a bit longer to kill you, and if you fight him, you might shave off like 50 damage if he hits you 5 times. That's actually quite a lot of damage early into the game. Still though, I kind of find him annoying right now because he can press R, do most of my health with Dark Harvest, and that is not changing at all. Urgot is also up for some stuff though. His Q cost has been increased by 20, W shield decreased as well by quite a lot, and the costing has been increased by 20. This will probably finally put Urgot down a little bit. They've nerfed him a bunch recently, but these are pretty harsh. Q mana cost is up to 80 now, so it really costs you to throw these out in lane phase, especially if you miss them. The shield being 20 more mana to start does obviously suck, but you're actually starting as half a big shield and half the ratio later into the game. That is a real kick in the nuts. I can't imagine Urgot will be good for solo queue after this. Personally, like, he's already hit and miss anyway. His win rate isn't that great when you're not at higher reload, so we'll see how this leaves him after it. One of the funniest changes actually to Rengai's Q damage rank 1 has been lowered to 30 from 70. It sounds really weird, but apparently that is actually a bug fix and it was never intended to be like that. It's going to be 40 damage off his Q rank 1, which is going to affect his early clear speed, which is already pretty weak. It is though only rank 1. Rank 2 is actually back to normal, so it only affects him until he gets level 4 in the game. Sivir is another one like that as well. Your W bounce damage has been lowered by 5%, and it might slightly explain why Sivir has been so good recently. Her W was doing more damage than it was supposed to. It is only 5%, but that might have made a difference later into the game when you have a ton of AD, especially considering it was total AD and not even just bonus. Okay, so let's move into some buffs, and the first one we're going to look at is Rek'Sai. She's getting a few actually. Some of this is supposed to just be quality of life stuff to make it a little bit easier and save you a little bit of time, like burrowing after clearing a camp, and that should allow your Q to come off cooldown just a little bit quicker. In theory, her Q change as well means that you can prep for a fight a little bit better, and when you dive in, there is less time before you can bite down for that double true damage. I still think though the best part about this is you cannot dodge her ultimate anymore. A well-timed flash before would mean that you take literally no damage and then she's kind of boned, right? But she should pick up way more kills now, and you're more in control of how that fight goes. She is actually a monster gank machine as well, so it wouldn't surprise me if we see a lot more Rek'Sai after these changes. One of the other big ones though, and this is a bug fix apparently, is Varus's blight damage is going up a lot. One of my favorite AD carries been in the gutter for a while now, unfortunately, but he might come back quite a lot. Maybe not, but your W is going to start better, and once maxed out, it's now twice as good per stack. This is the thing, right? It's going to do 15% damage now, rank 5, plus the ratio instead of 7.5 plus the ratio. That is freaking huge. If you ult combo somebody, so you proc the stacks from your ultimate and then the next 3 afterwards, that is at least 30% damage, maximum health damage as well, instead of 15%. I can't believe they called this a bug fix, by the way. That is a pretty huge bug to have had in the game. No wonder he was completely awful. I'm going to dust on my death cap in 9.4, sit some kids down with AP Varus after this for sure. Silas is getting a few things, and I think these are going to be buffs overall, but they're kind of like adjustments. Right, I think he's already in a pretty good spot, and these should kind of make him easier to use, and I think encourage you to max your Q out. The W nerf is only felt rank 5, right, which is level 9 if you max it out first. If you go for Q, then you won't even notice it until very later into the game, and with that, it's easier to hit champions with the detonation part as well. There are a few things though that aren't actually listed here as well, like your Q now has a cast indicator to show the detonation location and radius, which makes it easier to hit in general. Also, your W might heal for less, but it now glows when you're at the maximum heal threshold possible, meaning that you should in theory get more benefit out of it and use it at better times. Even his ultimate no longer takes tower aggro and won't cancel if you lose vision. The point is there are a lot of tweaks to make him easier to play and more effective, which should make him better overall. With these changes, I'm not sure if they're overall buffs or not, because it is a massive nerf to his ultimate, but then compensation buffs to everything else. The Q damage and the W cooldown buff should provide a lot more wave clear, which is really nice, and poke as well in the lane phase, and that might let him roam more and have a bit more control because he can push harder. Your W recast should definitely net you a few more kills as well. It allows you to hop to your shadow at the same range it mimics spells now, by the way, and plays up to that kind of theme of jumping around and being a ninja. I think as well they said the idea is that if you're less focused on killing somebody with loads of AD late game for that ultimate passive, you can play however you want to. So for example, they say you could split push a bit more now with the better W range and Q to push waves faster, and that should improve his late game, but we're gonna have to see about that. Essence Reaver is also getting a kind of buff and change as well. So I didn't realize last video when I said this that Cutie Pie was abusing this change, and apparently he is one of the ones responsible for this change. You cannot sack your Essence Reaver anymore to double up on the cooldown reduction, but it is going to be up 5 AD, which is nice as well. I also actually think it's pretty underrated going 100% crit with this Affinity Edge and 2 Zeal items, so we might see that a little bit more after the change. There are a few extra buffs here as well, which in theory are supposed to be a bit smaller. So like Hecarim, his Q cost has been lowered by 4 rank 1, same rank 5 by the way, and his E cooldown lowered by 4 seconds rank 1, it's the same rank 5. At the moment, he is one of the best solo Q junglers. Apparently, he's dominating the NA ladder at the moment with this Mobi boost rush. Q cost lower means a better early clear, and your E is something you don't max until like level 13 normally, so you get 4 seconds off that for a big chunk of the game now. It wouldn't surprise me if we see a lot more Hecarim moving into 9.4, and it's actually being really good. Azir is also getting a buff, which I'm really surprised actually, but the attack speed growth has been doubled to 3%. It's increasing his mid to late game damage, not in the best spot at the moment anyway for a champion, but if you can still last till late game, then you will be a lot stronger, and base attack speed is a really good stat to buff. He will basically feel a lot better to play, a lot smoother, especially as you go through the game. The issue is though that it doesn't help early, where I think a lot of the games are decided right now, and he is notoriously weak. Gnar is also getting a few buffs to his armor and magic resist growth. It's a small change to really help him when he dives in. I'm not sure what their plan is with Gnar at the moment. He's a very weird champion, a bit hit and miss. Like rarely does well whenever I see him either. Trundle is also getting a few buffs to his W. It costs 20 less mana and gives 20% more attack speed, rank 5, but it is the same rank 1. He's probably a good champion, better than you think when a tank is picked, but there aren't a ton of tanks at the moment, and he received massive nerfs before, remember. I definitely think that makes him a lot weaker overall than he used to be. Even after these small buffs again, I wouldn't expect to see a ton of him. So that is patch 9.4 in a nutshell. Thank you for watching the video. I should actually be streaming right now as you're watching this if you want to come and say hello. Link down below, but for now, I'll leave you with the robots.